Today we're going to do a comparison between the Reflex, the rail, and the PMR 07. This comes to us from CrewNYC, who let us borrow it for a day so that we can show you this nice little video. This is my rail. PMR 07 belongs to Havoc. So we're going to take all these apart and show you what the differences markers. I want to go over several differences between these particular markers externally before we dive into the internal. As you can see, well, you probably won't know if you've ever done any research on this marker. The rail doesn't come with this trigger. It comes with a silver trigger made of very material. This is actually a reach trigger that I added on. Originally, it comes with an ASA with steel braided hose like this, which is connected here, that doesn't have an on-off. You see, it looks like this. I took it off, changed it to a Pops ASA, put a new fitting here so that I can make it, so it makes it easier to take the ASA off if I ever have to. I also changed the grips. It comes with standard black grips with the little Proto sign on it. This is a dye sticky grip, olive accents. And one other thing that this rail comes with stock is this clamp, this little screw-in clamping feed collar. I upgraded that with the dye clamping collar, which is about $20. You don't have to buy the threaded in part, and you don't need to. You just have to buy the clamp. Some places will overcharge you for it. They're gonna make you pay for the entire feed. So with that said, a couple external differences. The rail does not have the polished accent on the back here, along with a very different outer shell for the reg. This reg cannot be taken apart on the bottom, whereas this reg, you can see, taken apart from the bottom here to add 45-degree collar short. And as you can see, the polished accent here, and it's got a little index padding here in the front. Now the bolt engine for these two are the same. The only differences that you will see when we take it apart is that the setup for the tubes internally are very different, and the grip frame itself is the plastic composite material, whereas this is an all-metal aluminum construction. Overall, the original PMR 07, 08 to 09 are pretty similar. The 2010s were the ones that came stock with UL frame. This has been upgraded. If you watched our previous videos, this has been upgraded to an actual UL frame. See the die logo here, and it's got a UL board. Now the internals of this particular setup, bolt wise, is slightly different, and the internal solenoid setup is a little bit closer to the Flex than it is to the rail. As I've said in the past, closer to Ion setup. Kind of strange for dye, but none of these markers have LPRs, not even the Reflex. So if you want a spoolie with an LPR, you definitely have to go into the DMs or older PM and that 08. Alright, without further ado, I want to introduce you more the rail and the Reflex before I get into the 07 PMR, because a lot of people tend to think that the 07 PMR is a little different, and in fact it's actually very close to these two particular markers. It's just that the design of the internals are changed. People seem to believe that it's worth more in that sense, and it really is the same line of guns, just changed internally. Let me start taking apart the Reflex since I have to clean it anyways. I'm going to put aside all the, get into those side-by-side comparisons later. The Reflex cleans exactly like the rail. These Allen keys should come with the marker if you bought it new. If not, then it's a pretty big Allen key. It's one full turn. I'm going to take the eye pipe out. This one's got a little grit in it because it's been used. I want to reach down the collar, push it out, and that is the bolt engine. Now I want to show you the difference between this bolt engine and the original rail bolt engine that I took out. See, this is the bolt engine from my rail. I upgraded it to a Tech T bolt, so that's why I have it out already. Now if I was to take this piece apart, that's the back. I can't find my dental pick, so I'm going to use my hands. Then you unscrew firing can. And then, I mean, there's a missing O-ring here because I took it off, but as you can see, this is the rail bolt, this is the Reflex bolt. They're exactly the same. You can actually put this bolt in that one and it'll work. So in terms of bolt engines, they're exactly the same. The only difference between these two guns is the board and the setup of the solenoid, which you'll see when I take this apart. I'm going to set my rail bolt aside. I just wanted to illustrate that for you guys before anybody goes crazy and thinks they're different. It's the reason why we're comparing these guns. So just like the rail, you want to look through the body. Make sure you run a swab through it, maybe like a slightly damp paper towel, just to make sure you clean it out a little bit, or just wipe it down, dry wipe it or whatever. If it's not too dirty, don't worry about it too much, but make sure you clean the bolt as much as possible. You want to clean the internals of this body as much as possible, as much as you feel confident to do so. and there's some grit in the threads. You can use a dental pick, just pick it out if you want. So I wanted to show you guys the board setup in terms of this frame. This is what it looks like on the, and as you can see, it's actually cut through, whereas on the rail it's more of a piece of plastic and it's covered on one side. You can't see the other. You can't see through it. But essentially, the board setup is very similar. It does use a UL style type of board. So other than that, it's really not too crazy different in terms of how the board is set up, but the frame feels much better. Now the Reflex does come with an on-off ASA, and the 2012 ASA is better than the 2011 Reflex. This is the exact same ASA as the DI-NTs. Now they did change the trigger. This is the reach trigger, which is similar trigger than that I installed into my rail, but this one has a little more of a S shape, so it's got a little bump here, so it's easier to walk with your middle finger. And it comes stock with the clamping feet without. That said, let's go ahead and start taking this apart. Hopefully, not destroying anything. So I already took off 3. Oh, one other difference between the two obviously is the Reflex comes with a 2-piece barrel, whereas the rail comes with a single 10-inch barrel. This Reflex barrel is ultralight thread on front because this is an ultralight barrel. This is a Ninja's ultralight barrel, and it'll fit perfectly. And with all die guns, they're all autococker threaded. Ultralight front threaded. Saves you $50, $100 depending on buying. Helps you finish off your barrel kit. Now, I'm gonna get the rest of the grip off. So those are all the grip frame screws. Oh, this came with a. Be careful with this piece right here. There's a little plastic piece here that helps bring the light forward from the board to the outside of the grip so that you can see it better here. So it protects the board a little bit from paint coming in. Now we're going to accidentally break this, and CrewNYC is going to be really upset.
How are we going to break it? We took apart so many die guns.
The really cool part of this is I'm going to leave the ASA on, but if you ever wanted to take it off, this screw does it on the side. You don't have to peek through it, and you can actually make the adjustment from right there, you see? So we're going to take off the macro line. Macro line is always kind of difficult to take off. So anyways, just like that, the reg comes off. That's the reg. And now, taking off the grip frame. It's a good thing we're doing this because I'm finding a lot of paint within the crevices of a lot of these areas. So I'm sure CrewNYC will be very happy that we're taking it apart and we can clean it a little bit. What you want to do prior to actually removing all the screws here is you want to take, and since this is not my marker, I'm not going to pull on the wires to get these things out. I'm actually going to try to get these out legitly. As always, you want to keep these screws separate because they are slightly different. These are longer. The frame screws are longer than the. So now we pulled it apart. Now this is as far as we need to take it apart to show you the differences. Oh wow, look at that. Look at how nicely weaved these wires are.
Oh wow.
As compared to the PMR, which is kind of just shoved in there. But this is as far as we need to go to show you what the differences between the PMR and the Reflex are. I'm going to set the grip frame apart because obviously that's one of the major differences that you can see on the outside.
To show mine
So now here's my PMR. This is a reach trigger, more of a scythe, comes out instead of coming over and in. More forwarding. Oh no, I'm putting mine on this side and Crystal on that.
What's so hot? Sun. Right? Cold.
So see, looking through everything, this is what it looks like. You can't really see through it, but it does have a battery casing. So very similar, not the same, very similar. Now we're going to take off the, so I took off that, I'm going to take off the reg. Now my reg is really tight over here and I'm too lazy to fix that, so that's what my reg, it looks like it needs a little cleaning anyway, so I'll set that aside. And I'm going to take off my grip frame to show you guys. I'll tell you something very interesting that I noticed while taking these things apart is this Allen key. It's easier to take off this grip frame than it is on the Reflex. Now, it seems like there's more room. You see how this goes in. While I was screwing it, I was knocking into the frame like that. Didn't happen when I was taking off this. So that's a very interesting note, especially when you're doing complete maintenance on the gun. So with the rail, you'll notice that there's actually 3 separate connectors here. That's because the solenoid from essentially this whole assembly over here. So I wanted to compare the two from the back. When you put these side by side, at the very tip, this is where it connects. You'll notice that it actually comes back a little further, so it makes it easier to take this frame out. That's very interesting to note. That makes this a lot easier to maintain in terms of complete maintenance. Any of you are ever wondering, this does not fit on this because this is a flat, straight cross. It's much easier to do a rounded cut with plastic than it is with metal. The difference between my PMR and other PMRs is mine has a QEV in it, and that helped me lower the dwell to what the stock Reflex is. So these are the very differences between the two particular guns. You'll notice that instead of having a tube that goes to the back of the bolt and the tube that goes to the front 2 bolts and into the regulator, this is just one complete assembly, which means that there's less passages that the air needs to go through for the bolt to cycle. That boils down to a lower dwell, whereas there's more space within this particular marker. The dwell is much higher and significantly higher at that point. Now, what I've done to my marker has ultimately changed the usable dwell from 40 stock down to 19 or 20, which is very close to the Reflex stock. And ultimately, something like that is something you would do if you really want to get the best performance out of your marker. It's not necessary because rail does shoot very well at stock anyways, and it's not harsh by any means. So other than that, what we're going to do is we're going to set these aside, and I want to show you what the 07 PMRs look like in terms of the internal. I'm going to set these right there, and I'm going to take out Hobo Ninja's PMR, and we'll start to break this down. Now it's very hard to find an 07 PMR because they're such old guns in its original form. Only because as soon as most people get them, they start upgrading them if they're stock, like Hobo Ninja did. One thing you really have to be careful with the 07s is they have what is called an eye ribbon, and eye ribbon is very, very fragile. I actually tore one by accident when I first worked on this particular gun. It's literally just setting the grip down. Just ripped right off. So as you can see, this is the UL frame. This is the eye ribbon I'm talking about. It goes all the way up into the body, flat, and into the eyes. So what you want to do is you want to take that out before you do anything. And you want to take this out. This is the solenoid wires. And I'm going to do that, and I'll show you the internals of the PMRs. Very simple. All 3 of these markers are very easy to take apart. It's just this one you have to tend to it with a little more care because of the eye ribbons. And the regulator has to come off because this particular marker has adapter for a normal ASA regulator because Dye uses special threads for their regs.
You see how easy that was to take off?
This reg comes to us from 06 Eagle. Ugly reg, but whatever. It worked and it came with the gun, so no reason to upgrade something that's not broken. Well, there's always reasons to upgrade, but that's not Hobo Ninja's model.
I'll upgrade when I get the money. Use my phone.
Alright, so same thing, 2 screws, hold this into the body. You guys get to see my ugly mug.
On camera.
Now you want to hold these tightly together because even though the eye ribbon is loose, you don't want to tear it because those things are very easy to tear and they're getting increasingly hard to find.
Wiggle it free. And then just wiggle it. Free.
Alright, so this is the UL frame for the PMRs.
And just a comparison.
Nothing too special, but wanted to compare the two.
Yeah.
This is actually shorter. You see that?
Oh yeah, it's actually the same. Because
It's actually the same without the front portion. And this is rounded over here.
Yeah, and a little extra in the back, so it's easier for beginners to disassemble.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's not gonna work.
Oh, fail. Okay. Anyway, so I'm gonna put all these 3 side by side, and you'll notice the differences between the 3 right away. See, this is what I meant by the 07s being the 07s, the 08s, the 09s, and the 2010s were very similar to what we have in the reflexes now because the solenoid is direct mounted into the bolt, whereas the rail was held in by tubes and all the airflow is controlled by tubes and banjos. So we already took out the bolt system for the 07 PMR. This is the bolt system 07 PMR. I'm going to set this so that I can put these on the table for you guys. And obviously the bolt system for the rail and the reflex, as I showed you earlier, were exactly the same. So this is the bolt system for the reflex and the rail. And what I have in this, you guys should have already seen it in our previous video during the Tech T installation video.
For all our new viewers out there.
But for all you new viewers out there, that, my friends, needs a little wiggling, but is the Tech T bolt. Does it make it better? Yes, it does, because if you guys want to see it, it did increase my velocity upon installation to 350 from 290. This is the Tech T bolt. If you guys wanted to know the differences between the 3, the Tech T bolt comes with 2 pieces. It comes with the bolt and it comes with this back piece, which doesn't extend into the back cap like this one. You see the differences? Right there. Which is the reason why you need less air to push this bolt around, which ultimately means lower dwell. And this is the 07. Now, there's a reason why this was a terrible bolt system. The back cap is actually set in by set screws, which holds this whole back assembly in and the air in the chamber to drive the bolt. Also, this particular bolt system had this funky block in here, so this had to be aligned to the body before you can actually push the bolt in. But other than that, this bolt assembles and disassembles very similar. Because this is the oldest gun, it's the longest bolt. Even though this bolt is very light, it's still a very long bolt, which means it required a lot more air to move around. The original stock dwell of the 07 is 19, 20-ish. Stock dwell of the rail was 40. The stock dwell of the reflex is 19. With that said, those are the complete differences between all 3 of these guns. With everything set aside, it's a little messy. Let's put together some of this stuff so you can actually see it. So over here we have the 07 bolt engine. This is the Tech T bolt engine on my rail, and this is the stock bolt engine on the reflex. A lot of it's very similar. Say that the original 07, 08, 09, and 2010 PMRs were different than the reflex or the rail. No, they really aren't that different because the bolt engine is the same. The way they designed the solenoid was different, and that's what attributes to a lot of the performance within the marker. Now, the grip frame being composite or aluminum, that makes a difference in the value of the gun, but it doesn't drive performance in any sense other than the board. It doesn't actually contribute to the actual performance within the mark. But as I've showed in older videos, there are many ways in which you can actually change the performance of the rail for a much lower cost if you're into tweaking things like I am. I mean, if you have the money, should you buy a reflex? Yes. Overall, I like the feel personally for the grip frame, and I like having a 2-piece barrel, especially if you want to start putting together your barrel kit and you're new to the sport. you should always look to things that make your setup a little bit better when you play.
Alright guys, thanks for watching.
So, please stay tuned.